Hello, everybody. Caroling rock lessons, number, I don't know, 17 or something? I can never get that. Yeah, that's it. All right. How y'all doing? You know, I always talk about rock and roll, but I do have a deep love of traditional country music. Hell, I played on a million country records. Hardly a lot of traditional country records, but plenty of this sort of new modern version of country music, which I have mixed feelings about. Hanging around with Vince Gill and, hey, Marshall, say hi to the people. This is my other boy, Marshall, the oldest one, and he's a football freak. That's all we do is play football all day long. And that boy can throw a football. He's 7 years old. He throws it like Joe Montana. I'm not even kidding. Anyway, so, hanging around with Vince Gill and Paul Franklin and all those guys on the road and stuff and in the studio, man, it's been a crash course on how to play real country music. And I'm trying like hell to figure that out. And, those guys are like encyclopedias of that stuff, the way I am about rock and roll, But traditional country music is a bitch to play right. I mean, it's all about restraint, and it's all about touch, man. Ooh, touch. Touch. Something I've been meaning to talk about. I feel like, aside from the things that I've already mentioned, phrasing, all that shit, touch, man. Touch is everything. I remember one time I was producing a record for my friend Jedd Hughes. Do you guys know Jedd? Jedd is an unbelievable guitar player from Australia. I mean, he's one of my favorites in the whole world. We played together in Vince's band. I've known Jedd for years, dear friend. And God, man, talk about a guy who knows how to touch the guitar. I mean, his sense of feel and tone shading is just astounding. I remember one time years and years ago, I was producing a record for him, and I sat there with him and I said, "Hey, Jedd, what do you think is the strongest thing about your guitar playing?" And he goes, "Oh, mate, touch." He goes, I could play a note 1,000 different ways. And I was like, goddamn right you can. I've seen you do it. Man, you know, Daniel Lanois, also amazing at that. I saw him live one time in a small club in Nashville, and I mean, he was playing the guitar everywhere. I mean, he was playing it down here, he was playing it up here, just creeping all around the guitar to get these crazy tonal shadings, you know, and what? I mean, Daniel Lanois, check him out. What's that record he made about 5-6 years ago? Hell, maybe more. Instrumental record. I can't remember the name of it, but goddamn, it's good. You want to say anything to these guys?
No.
He just started playing guitar. He just learned E minor and E major. Just like that. So, like, you know, when you think about touching the guitar, you know, like, I'm like, I feel like there's like a million different, you know, levels that you could play a note or riff at. You know, you could play it super hard and sharp. You can play it super soft and chill, like. We all know that, right? But that's stuff that, you know, you should think of the guitar as you know, every riff to me has like 100 gears that I could play it in, you know? And really good engineers and producers in the studio are interested in all of those gears. You'll play a lick and the guy will say, if you're at playing that at 60% now, play it at 80%. And they'll say things like that. Like Dan Huff is that tuned in, you know, and he'll actually say, I love that thing you're playing, just back it off 10%. And that just means play it just like you're playing it, but just a tinge softer. Or a little harder, whatever it needs, you know, or a little bit brighter. These are really minor adjustments that you're making in the studio. You know, it's a little one number on an amp knob turn is a huge ordeal when you're working with great engineers, great studio, great microphones, you know. Yeah, the whole touch thing. I remember, not to name drop, years ago, only because Dan Huff sent me over there. I went over to Switzerland to record with Mutt Lange on a Shania Twain record. Spent 2 days working over on something with him. And I was going to do a power chord. He wanted the track of power chords, you know, raunchy, distorted, low chords, you know, fifths. And I was going to play him, and I would, you know, crush him. And he kept saying, play softer, mate. Play softer, mate. And I was like, what? And I tried again, and he kept saying, play softer, mate. Play softer. And I was like, what is he talking about? And he said, look, man, if you want the chords to sound huge, you got to turn the amp up, play the guitar real soft, and let the amp bloom. He goes, you know, he produced all those AC/DC records. And he goes, Angus Young plays so light you wouldn't believe it. You know, he barely hits the strings, but he turns the amp up, lets the amp do all the work. That concept blew my mind when I first learned it, and I've used it a million times since. You know, like, it makes sense. A guitar pickup is like a microphone. If you crush the strings really hard, the pickup shuts down for a second. It doesn't know how to process all that information that you're giving it. It's like if you have a microphone by a crash cymbal and you crush that cymbal, it's gonna overload that mic for a second. But if you turn the preamps up on the mic, turn the amp up, and you just barely hit it and let that mic record it the way it wants to, the way it blooms is amazing. And then that is truth, man. I mean, it doesn't always work. I've tried it in times and sometimes you really need to hit those power chords hard. You know, when you got a good crunchy sound. But man, Mutt, among a bunch of other shit that he taught me, was absolutely right. I mean, what does he know anyway? All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed this lesson. See you next time.